I swear to you, the first thing that man said to me that morning wasn't hello, wasn't good morning, wasn't even some half-hearted neighborly introduction. It was, if you refuse to pay the dues, the association will have no choice but to evict you. Evict me from my own land, the one I bought with cash I earned crawling through creeks, hanging off survey towers in Wyoming wind, measuring rocks and dirt and riverbeds for 2 decades of lawsuits and land fights. The one I bled for, sweated for, prayed for on nights so quiet the stars looked close enough to pluck down like fruit, and this stranger in a freshly pressed polo and a clipboard thicker than his sense was telling me I owed him money to exist here. And I don't know what it was. Maybe the way his loafers sank just slightly into my red clay driveway like they didn't belong there. Maybe the smell of early hay and diesel and the fact I'd just taken my first sip of coffee. But I started laughing, the kind of laugh that comes from deep down, the kind that shakes the dust off every bone you own. He took a step back. Folks like him don't know what to do when their script falls apart. You're trespassing, I told him, wiping my eyes, still chuckling. And unless that clipboard comes with a badge and a warrant, you're leaving. He swallowed hard, glanced over his shoulder, and that's when I saw her. White SUV positioned at the end of my dirt road like a queen on a chessboard, tinted windows, engine still running, and a woman inside stiller than marble, sunglasses gleaming, lips pursed like authority was something she breathed in the morning instead of oxygen. Ellen Vance. I'd learn her name soon enough. She raised her phone, snapped a picture of me like she was tagging wildlife for relocation, and drove off without saying a word. And I remember muttering, mostly to myself, mostly to the land around me, you picked the wrong patch of dirt to mess with. Because I didn't buy this place to join some community knitting circle. I didn't leave a 20-year career in courtrooms, land disputes, and bureaucratic trench wars to move into a neighborhood where folks argue about mailbox paint shades and how many inches your grass is allowed to grow. I came here to breathe, to hear wind whisper through mesquite instead of traffic horns, to watch coyotes trot along the creek bed at dusk, to wake up to silence and know that silence belonged to me. 3 months earlier, I stood in a dusty county courthouse, the kind with ceiling fans that hum like tired bees and windows that look like they've watched 100 summers come and go, while an auctioneer wiped his brow and called for one last bid on parcel 17B. No one lifted a hand. Not one polished shoe, not one rancher boot. I lifted mine. Sold. The gavel cracked like thunder rolling over dry hills, and in that echo, I heard something I hadn't heard in years: freedom. I fixed up the place little by little, parked my Airstream beside the leaning barn, patched its roof with sheet aluminum that glinted like promise under morning sun, ran a small solar array, lived on black coffee, fried eggs, and stubborn hope. The first week felt like medicine. The kind you don't swallow, the kind you breathe. Neighbors from Coyote Ridge, the HOA kingdom half a mile away, would creep down the county road sometimes, beige SUVs rolling slow, watching like I was a wild animal they didn't know whether to fear or domesticate. They stared. I waved. They drove off. Fine by me. One afternoon, Sheriff Henderson stopped by. Big man. Belly like he enjoyed his dinners. Voice slow and measured like he didn't believe in rushing words or cattle. Heard you bought the Miller place, he said, trying to bring it back to life. He nodded at the deed sitting on my dashboard. It's outside Coyote Ridge, right? On paper, yeah. He paused just a second too long. Folks over there like to pretend the county ends at their gate. I laughed. I shouldn't have. A week later, the queen in the white SUV showed up. She stepped out of her car like she expected applause. Blazer sharp, heels sharp, voice sharper. Clipboard hugged to her chest like scripture. Are you the owner? She asked, not curious, not friendly, just confirming where to aim her authority. That's right. Jake Walker. I'm Ellen Vance, president of the Coyote Ridge Homeowners Association. I raised an eyebrow. Good for you. We've noticed increased activity here. Heavy equipment, unapproved structures, noise complaints. I wiped sweat off my forehead. Ma'am, this land isn't part of your community. Oh, I'm sure that's what your realtor told you, she said, voice dripping sugar over poison. But the borders were redrawn last quarter. You'll be receiving information soon. She turned on her heel and walked away before I could reply, dust swirling behind her like nature itself was annoyed. That night, sitting by my campfire, coyotes yipping in the distance, I reread my deed for the 10th time. Every line said the same thing: county property, not HOA. But that tone she used, the kind of tone a person uses when they're not bluffing, they're warning you they've already made their move. And I sat there staring at my barn roof, reflecting moonlight like a shield, sipping cheap whiskey like courage, telling myself I'd come here for peace, not war. Turns out sometimes war comes for you anyway. I didn't know then about the spyware rocks they'd plant along my fence, or the drone they'd fly low enough to rattle the tin roof, or the goons they'd send at midnight with bolt cutters and bad intentions, or the forged county files they'd slip through back channels to steal my acreage with pixels and paperwork. I didn't know yet that an HOA could act like a cartel with welcome packets and glossy newsletters, wearing khakis instead of ski masks. All I knew was one truth that settled into my bones like the land itself spoke it. Boundaries matter to men who build them. And Ellen Vance had just stepped across mine. The mornings after her visit felt different, like the land was holding its breath right alongside me, waiting to see whether I'd bend or break or get real stubborn like my grandfather always warned I could. I tried to pretend nothing had changed. Cleared brush, greased the hinges on the barn doors, sharpened fence tools while the radio hummed low old country songs, the kind about heartbreak and dust, and people who never fit in polite neighborhoods. By day 4, even the coyotes seemed quieter, like they were watching the fence line too. Then came the knock. Not the soft neighborly kind, the government kind, the kind you hear right before someone tells you they've decided your life needs rearranging. I stepped out wiping grease from my palms, rag still in hand, and found 2 men in neon vests stamped Coyote Ridge Community Affairs standing just outside the gate, hands folded polite like they were waiting to be invited to Sunday lunch. "Morning, Mr. Walker," the younger one chirped, clipboard ready, salesman's smile glued on. "We're here to deliver your association welcome packet." I stared at him a long moment, letting silence do the heavy lifting. And what association would that be? The older one, mustache, gut, attitude, cleared his throat. "The Coyote Ridge Homeowners Association," he recited. "Under the revised Boundary Expansion Charter, your property now falls within our jurisdiction." He said it like he was reading from a gospel. A ridiculous gospel, printed at Office Depot. They tried handing me a thick envelope sealed with a shiny HOA emblem like a royal decree. I didn't take it. "You gentlemen see that barbed wire?" I asked, pointing at the fence line. "That marks county land. My land. You cross it without cause, you're trespassing." The younger one kept smiling, though his eyes wavered. "Sir, refusal to cooperate may result in fines or—" "You can take your paperwork," I said quietly, "and shove it right back into whichever meeting room y'all dreamed this up in." They exchanged confused, bureaucratic glances, the kind people give when they discover the script doesn't cover the situation. The older man tried again, voice tight. "We'd really prefer not to escalate." Then walk away. They left, dust kicking behind their SUV like it was trying to cover their retreat. I watched the dust settle, and I swear even the wind paused to see what I'd do next. That evening I called Sheriff Tom. He sighed heavy, like a man who's seen this show before. "Jake, don't poke the bear," he warned. "Those folks have lawyers on speed dial." "Good," I told him. "So do I. But adrenaline isn't armor." That night doubt crept in like cold under an old blanket. So I walked the fence line by lantern light, boots sinking into soft soil, night bugs rattling in the grass, and for every fence post I touched, I reminded myself, "You own this. You earn this. They don't get to take what's yours." The next morning, early rain hit the tin roof like a drum roll before trouble. When it let up, I stepped out barefoot onto the damp ground, coffee steaming in my hand, and there it was, a sheet of paper taped to my gate, curling in the moisture. Notice of violations. Unauthorized grading. Unapproved fencing. Non-compliant land use. Failure to submit landscaping plans. Landscaping plans. For a farm. I laughed so hard a crow on the fence hopped like I offended him personally. But laughter only lasts so long. Because deep down, I knew what this was. Not rules. Not oversight. Not a misunderstanding. A siege. By noon, 2 HOA vehicles showed again. Reflective vests, tablets, clipboards, the whole pretend official circus. They talked about maintenance districts, shared community stewardship, mandatory fees. I talked about trespass laws, property rights, and calling a real sheriff this time. They left again, but this time they were angry. Angry bureaucrats are worse than angry men. Men punch and leave, Bureaucrats file paperwork and dig their claws in quiet. That night, right as the cicadas started singing, I heard the hum. Low, mechanical, familiar only to folks who've worked near survey drones. A small silver dot hovered above my east fence line, drifting slow, red light blinking like it was recording every inch of my dream. I raised binoculars, saw the lens glint back, saw it trace a boundary. My boundary. And I whispered, "So you want to play that game?" Next morning, I downloaded the trail cam footage. There it was again, drone reflections on the pond, aerial tracking. Not curiosity, not mistake. Reconnaissance. My stomach tightened. Not fear, just that old courtroom instinct. They were building a case against me, and they thought they were the only ones who knew how to build cases. By the third night, the rain broke, lightning flashing far off, and I was drifting to sleep when the motion alert on my phone buzzed sharp. Trail cam. Southgate. I opened it, grainy, but clear. 2 figures creeping through the dark, cutting the chain on my gate. Lights off on a truck behind them. Bolt cutters glinting. Voices low. They moved toward my generator line. Snap. Power died. Lights flickered off across the fence line like stars being plucked from the sky. I didn't shout. Didn't rush. I stepped out, Winchester in hand. Not raised, not threatening, just present, steady, like truth made into steel. You boys lost. They froze. I saw the young one's face in the moonlight, fear and guilt twisting it like he knew this wasn't some HOA prank anymore. The older one tried bluster. "This is Coyote Ridge." Wrong answer. I thumbed the safety, not firing, just letting them hear it. Now that made their back straighten. "You pick up that gate," I said softly, "and put it right back where you found it." They left. Fast. Mud spraying behind them. When silence settled back in, thick as wet earth, I reconnected the generator, lights humming back to life. My hands shook. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from knowing the threshold had been crossed, and there was no going back to mornings with just coffee and record players and quiet water by the pond. I wasn't living in peace anymore. I was living in a war I didn't start, but sure as hell intended to finish. And as I sat inside, rain tapping on metal again, heart still pounding like hooves on dry ground, one thought settled in so heavy it felt like a vow. You can fight men with guns, unions with money, companies with lawyers, but nothing is more dangerous than fighting a man for the land that finally saved his life. They didn't just pick a fight. They picked the wrong man to fight with. People like to think battles are loud. Engines roaring, steel clashing, voices raised, dust flying. But real wars, the ones that matter, the ones fought over land, over pride, over the right to stand where your boots are planted without asking permission. They usually start quiet, like a storm rolling in before you hear the thunder. And mine rolled in at 8:14 a.m. 2 days later, dust rising on the county road like smoke off a fuse, when 4 trucks with Coyote Ridge landscaping and maintenance logos eased to a stop outside my gate. It was peaceful at first, the kind of morning where the sun hits just right and the air smells of rain left over from the night. The kind of morning where you figure you might finally get a breather. Then I saw the backhoe. Men hopped out in neon vests, chatting, laughing, unloading stakes, shovels, PVC pipe, spools of irrigation line like they were setting up a playground. I walked down slow, coffee still warm in my hand, and asked, "Morning, fellas. Who told you to come dig holes in God's country?" The kid holding the plans blinked like I'd spoken in ancient Greek. The HOA sent us, sir. Said we're installing drainage and signage for the new community park." I nodded, real serious. "Park, huh? On my pasture." He looked at his foreman. Big man, sunburned neck, red face. Foreman puffed up. "We have a permit." "Good," I said, sipping coffee. "So do I." I pulled out the county plat map and deed, the real ones, the ones with seals, signatures, and history stamped on them like armor. "You break ground here," I told them, steady and calm, "and I'll call the sheriff, then sue you and whatever HOA sent you straight into bankruptcy court. So unless you want to be the guys who dug up the wrong man's land, pack it up." They hesitated. Big guy swore under his breath. Tools got reloaded. Tailgates slammed. Engines fired up. And they drove away, leaving tire ruts and a silent promise they'd be back. The moment their dust settled, I called Claire. She didn't say good morning. She said, "Tell me you documented everything." I had. Photos. Video. Timestamp. License plates. "Good," she said. Then we escalate. And oh, we did. But the HOA escalated first, not with trucks this time, but with something far worse. Paperwork disguised as truth. See, evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears khakis and carries a binder. 2 days later, the county's GIS and zoning overlay suddenly updated online. The boundary of Coyote Ridge HOA moved 0.5 miles east, right over my fence line. A magic trick, a quiet theft, a line redrawn in pixels instead of blood. Claire dug. I dug. And we found the fingerprints, a county clerk login, late-night upload, IP tied to Susan Harper, cousin of Ellen Vance. A secret boundary expansion, illegal as moonshine in a church basement. That's when we called in nuclear fire, not guns, not fists, not shouting. A state-certified geodetic surveyor named Ingrid Dalton. Steel-toe boots. Laser scanner. Notebook like a holy book. No patience for nonsense. She spent 4 hours walking my fence, scanning GPS markers, comparing them to state records older than most HOA board members' mortgages. When she finished, she didn't smile, didn't high-five, didn't preach. She just spat dust from her lip and said, "Your boundary's real. Theirs is forged." I nodded. Good. Let's bury M with it. Then I set my trap. Not violence, documentation, and patience, the two tools bureaucrats fear most. I found the old well marker near the south fence, Site 22B, listed in state groundwater files nobody touches. Dug it out, cleared it, flagged it, posted a sign. Protected Aquifer Monitoring Zone. Unauthorized excavation prohibited by state code. Looked official enough to scare the truth into anyone. Mounted cameras. Uploaded to cloud. Then mailed an anonymous, concerned resident letter to the HOA office, hinting my land was blocking their drainage plans. And sure enough, 3 nights later, in a storm so thick the lightning looked tired, headlights crept to my fence. 2 figures jumped out, spray paint, stakes, trenching gear. They dug. On camera. Inside the flagged zone. A violation of property lines. A violation of environmental code. A violation of common sense. Next morning, Ingrid confirmed it. Claire filed the complaint. The DA got a copy. And the fuse finished burning. Court day looked like rain and judgment had a baby. Judge Margaret Cordova, gray hair, sharper eyes than a hawk on caffeine, sat like she'd seen every trick in the book and was bored waiting for a new one. Claire laid it out slow, methodical, blade by blade. Drone footage, trail cam evidence, trespass video, forged zoning file metadata, survey records, HOA emails plotting to force sale through dues pressure. When Claire read that line out loud, a woman in the second row gasped like she'd seen the devil himself. Ellen tried to play queen again. Pearls, posture, icy indignation. But her voice wavered. Her eyes flickered. Her lawyer sweated like a glass of sweet tea in July. The judge froze the HOA's authority right then and there. No more dues. No more enforcement. No more threats. And when Claire requested full dissolution of the HOA, you could feel oxygen leave the room. Ellen's jaw clenched so hard I thought her veneers might crack. But the judge didn't say no. She said, "I will consider it." And in law speak, that's code for start packing your office. In the days that followed, dominoes fell like autumn leaves in hurricane season. Whistleblowers, bank statements, kickbacks, off-books accounts, agents walking out of HOA offices with boxes full of receipts and shame. Then came the sheriff, same man who warned me not to poke the bear, now standing outside Ellen's house while she was led away in cuffs. Not the violent kind, the bureaucratic kind, the kind that stings worse because your neighbors watch and nobody offers a casserole. Her son Tyler got probation. Susan lost her job, and Coyote Ridge HOA dissolved. A sign showed up days later at their gate. Painted crooked, nailed rough, but perfect. Welcome to Freedom Ridge. I didn't make it, but I sure smiled when I saw it. 1 week later, fog on the fields, dew heavy on fence wire. I was hauling feed when I saw her. Ellen, walking the county road with 2 lawyers trailing her like vultures who suddenly realized the carcass was their client's reputation. She didn't stop, didn't glare, just nodded once, tired, humbled in the way a storm is humbled only after it breaks itself against the mountains. "You win," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No, the land won. I just held the line." She walked off into the fog, and I swear, the silence after felt like the land exhaling. That evening I sat on my porch, steam from my coffee rising into cold dusk, coyotes calling somewhere beyond the ridge, bees settling in their hives, wind touching the grass like a blessing. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt right, rooted, like the dirt under my boots finally accepted me as one of its own. Because land isn't something you own. It's something you answer to. And if you ever fight for yours, really fight, you'll learn the same truth I did out here where fences meet sky. Freedom doesn't live behind gates. Freedom lives where you're willing to stand and say no. So tell me, was I right to fight like that? To pull every document, every law, every inch of fence wire tied around what was mine? Or should I have paid them just to keep the peace? Even if it wasn't peace, just surrender dressed up polite? Let me know in the comments. And if you've got your own HOA nightmare, or your own patch of land you'd go to war for, share it. Some battles don't get fought until someone tells the story first. And hey, hit subscribe. Not because I asked, but because out here, we look out for each other. And there's always another fight coming over the horizon.